Welcome to Gaming on the Brain. My name's Mark.
I'm Glenn.
And in today's episode, we're going to be looking at 5 Boss Rush arcade fighting games. Now, this one was Glenn's conception, so I'm going to hand it over to Glenn. You can explain, mate.
Thank you very much. As we call them, Boss Rush fighting games, so may or may not have ever heard of this before. People have heard of fighting games, yes, but this subgenre of fighting games is not always very popular, a little bit niche as well. There is quite a few out there if you try to dig. Won't give you any names at this moment, but there's a few little features that do denote a Boss Rush fighting game, and again, even none of those are set in concrete, but usually you've got a small playable cast, so it could be anything from maybe, again, no strict number, but a single playable character, or maybe 2, 3, 4 playable characters tops. You'll get nothing even on the degree of, say, even the original Street Fighter 2 World Warrior, a handful of playable characters at most. It's often a fixed roster of enemies, as in, for an example, you might take on 10 different opponents, but you'll probably take on those 10 opponents in a fixed order, or a roughly fixed order. There can be a little bit of jiggle with that, but a fixed order of ascending power as well. So when you're fighting these characters, they usually feel more like a boss battle in a game. It may have, like, if you thought of Street Fighter 2 was taking on all just boss characters instead of, you know, a roster of standard characters and then some bosses
Who are more fairly balanced. Acting with the player character. But hence the idea of the Boss Rush. You're fighting enemies that are typically more powerful than your character.
They usually have unusual moves and all, whereas in a general, let's say a vanilla, and I don't mean that as an insult, but in a normal vanilla fighting game, you'll generally have similar moves, especially in, say, a Mortal Kombat series, an example. Main characters have a set of moves, but those boss characters will have moves that no other character do.
That and that's will spam over and over again.
Spam those moves unbelievably. As I say, it's an unusual niche genre of games, and I'm hoping it's an interesting topic, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll cover quite a few years on this one, Glenn, as well. From 1985, Clue, up to 1996, another Clue.
Yeah, nice decade.
And, so yeah, I think it was we're seeing quite a good bit of history of this one. But anyway, go pour yourselves a drink, sit back, enjoy the episode, and we'll see you at the end.
Enjoy.
So the first game on our list today, Yaya Kung Fu, released in 1985 by Konami. And I must say, Glenn, it's very, very 1985 and Konami straight away, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Just, you can see that typical characteristics of the Konami's like graphics in there. And then there's that old-fashioned audio. It really brings you back, doesn't it?
It does, but I thought the tune, you know, the early tune for the first group of opponents is definitely earworm. Like,
it is.
It just sticks in there, you know, and you don't want it to, you hate to be in there, but it's there, you know. And it's like, I don't remember that on many of the home computer versions, but definitely.
Tinny, shrill audio that you get from those, pre-90s sound chips, essentially, isn't it?
Yes.
But I do like Yaya Kung Fu. I didn't really spend a lot of time with it. We used to have it on the Commodore 64, and that's probably where I played it the most.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I played the Speccy version as well, the Spectrum 48K at the time, and the, of course, C64, which I thought was a little bit more visually impressive, at least at the time. Not that I'm not on the Speccy, because it's a great computer as well. Of
course it is. But it's a boss battle in a sense where you're trying to figure out your opponent.
Yes.
So each level has one single opponent, and you're trying to take this guy or girl down, and you've got to try and figure out the best way to do this.
And it's always different, isn't it? I mean, every single, unlike we'll talk about Street Fighter 2 for a second, the World Warrior. There weren't a greatly balanced game for its time, but there was more of an deliberate attempt to balance, wasn't there?
Yes.
Where in a game like Yaya Kung Fu, which obviously there's a generation apart there, it is more about a puzzle, almost like a puzzle fight, in that like you say, you're trying to find maybe a certain move or a certain set of moves, like a small set, to take a character down, and once you've found that move, that's how you defeat them. It's not, in the genre in itself, it wasn't massively popular because it is about that, finding that move for a lot of the games that fit into this sub-genre fighting game.
There's a lot of, most of the games you'll find on this list, you can't really get into a roll, like combos and things like that. You just got to figure it out and typically stick with one or two moves.
That's that strategy or that single move.
Speaking of, I found for the majority of the characters, trying to jump into the character and force them to move, then left them open for like a kick.
Yeah.
And that seemed to work on a lot of the enemies. There's one of the enemies there, Club. He can only be hit with like low moves because he's got a shield, so anything big and high blocks it. So it's this kind of thing that you've got to think about when you're in the fights. But it really is a great game, and in my opinion, definitely worth time spending.
Time as well. I mean, I thought the range of opponents. I mean, there's 10 different. I think it was 10 different fights, wasn't there?
I think it was 10.
I mean, there was even sort of like a character called Fiedel, which is actually more of a bonus level, would you say?
Yeah.
But it broke up the game a little bit, broke up the style of the action. But every single character did have a very different move set and a very different style. I think the only sad thing about Your Kung Fu, the first game in the arcade, is it's single player. Well, it's alternating 2-player, but it's a single player game really for the purpose of versus, which is a shame because I think I would have actually had a bit of a good laugh, even though the opponents are all completely unbalanced. It would have been interesting to maybe just see how it would work as a 2-player game with two controlling
like
opponents.
a versus mode that allowed you to play
Allowing you to play as all the different characters against each other. There's lots of moves, I thought, as well, for what it is. For the single player, you know, for the character. Oolong, I think it's called.
I think it was.
Oolong, aye. But he you know, there's like quite a few different ways to fight, you know, which is quite good. And say the AI as well. I mean, I know there's a lot of reaction now. It's more about reactions and joystick button mapping, button reading and that. You know.
Command reads.
But it's good. I mean, it's quite good. You know, again, quite fun for what it was, and I thought I personally had quite a good time playing that. We had to cheat a bit though.
We did, no lies. Yeah, the difficulty is up and down. I wouldn't have said it's a curve. Because you fight enemies later on that were easy, but then the next fight would be nigh on impossible.
Yeah.
And then you go back to an easy opponent again.
That's it, yeah.
So yeah, we're not ashamed to say it, but we had to fire the cheats on a bit for a later.
Blues, wasn't it really? Blues, the final boss, the final character he was. Now he's meant to be a clone of your character, but shirtless, so cooler. But
far harder.
I don't know if he had an extra couple of moves or whatnot, mate, but he was hard as nails. Like
he was. But I definitely recommend it if you've never spent time with Yaya Kung Fu.
Yeah.
You know, put half an hour in there, give it a whirl. It's a good game. Go straight for the arcade version because why would you?
Yeah.
Do anything else? You know.
It's a fun game.
Our next game brings us to 1987, Glenn, and released by Capcom, the original Street Fighter, the OG.
Yeah, OG. Yeah, what a game! What a game! We had some experience with this one. I think. Like, I mean, I don't personally think it's a fantastic game. It can be made fun, but no game should have to be.
I'm going to be far less pleasant, and I'm going to say I did not like this game at all.
I thought it's unbalanced as all hell. I mean,
Really?
once the range of opponents is interesting. I mean, and there's some characters in there that do actually appear in later Street Fighter games. Like, actually, there's a few gaps before we see them again, so it was interesting. But I thought it's not an easy game to like, is it? Like, as far as the feel goes and that.
Well, we'll get to that in a second, but you mentioned difficulty there, and you know, you expect like some sort of curve to the difficulty, but this is not so much a curve as a difficulty brick wall. So you get past Birdie and just slam straight into ridiculous.
Birdie was like a joke. I mean, it seems like he had no jumping attack, so we could literally just fly and kick him to death. While
his only move was like a stare.
I think it was. He just stood there with his arms up.
I think he did hit us once or twice.
And then we hit Sagat, and that was just it. Like, you know, I mean, how the hell are you supposed to get like that without using that cheat, you know?
But the difficulty, the controls, Glenn, as you mentioned there.
Oh yeah.
They're probably one of the most unresponsive set of controls I've ever used in my life.
It's got an interesting story behind that. There's two very different Street Fighter 1 cabinets out now. The original deluxe version actually was much bigger and beautiful machine mind. Pneumatic bolt, which was very interesting for the time as well, to have this pressure resistant, pressure sensitive pad that depended on how hard you hit it. Would create a different strength punch and kick.
Easy, medium, or hard, as in the original like Street Fighter's 6-button layout.
Thankfully, they've done away with that cab later and made a smaller, sleeker design that uses the classic 6-button setup that we know today, thankfully, you know. But I did have great fun in that too.
Yeah, well, once, I mean, look, we'll admit it. We turned on the on MAME, you can actually activate easy special moves, and once we turned that on, it made the game a lot more fun. Obviously, broke the game. But it was a bad game to start with, so it just made it better, in my opinion.
And it worked.
It did. And in 2-player, it was even more fun because we could just pretty much kill each other in a couple of seconds.
Hi, Mark, and it was fairly balanced as well, because obviously you can only play as Ken and Ryu, and they're both the same character anyway. So I think it's maybe the most balanced fighting game ever created. It's perfect. 10 out of 10.
However, I am so glad though that they dialed it back, it changed the game completely for Street Fighter 2 World Warrior. 91, 4 years later, what an absolute banger of a game that was. And I'm sure we'll feature it later on at some point.
I would like to hope we do.
All right. I wish you good luck.
Monster Maulers, Glenn. For me, this is probably where this list starts to really get fun.
It's spicy, really.
It's this game, absolutely brilliant, super colourful, bright graphics, excellent soundtrack. There's lyrics in the audio as well, especially towards the last level.
They did that though, Konami, right about Turtles 2, what did Turtles 1?
Turtles 2,
yes. Anything after that, like Violent Storm and that, started putting lyrics in the songs, and I mean, this couldn't have been done properly at home, even on the SNES at the time.
No, of course not.
What a beautiful game.
But really, really well presented game, and the most important thing, it plays really well. It's very tight, the controls and that. You can see what's going on. It's easy to control everything, and the cast of the bosses. I mean, you fight a brain on the first level. It's fun with a big eyeball.
It's like I said, the thing is, you had all these amazingly eclectic characters, like nothing you've ever seen. And then the final level, it's like, let's turn into a scroll and beat them up as well. Throw 3 bosses at you. Why not? Why not? Top line?
It has some great variety in this one, and there's a lot of moves in there as well. You've got your typical combinations, like down to forward, stuff you'd see in
classic Street Fighter style moves.
Exactly.
Fireball and whatnot.
It's the 3 selectable characters. They all have enough difference to make them all justifiable.
There's no bad one or too good, wasn't it?
Exactly.
Powers didn't seem that way anyway.
I really like this game. It's for me, it's great for a quick 30-minute playthrough.
Well, it was unusual as well because it does divert a little bit from our previous boss rush mini-themed fighting games, and that.
Yeah.
You're not fighting rounds like you would in a more traditional game like Street Fighter 2. It is simply you take on an enemy, a large, stronger enemy, either in 1 player or 2 player, and then you beat them until he's dead. And if you fail, chuck a credit in and keep on going,
Yeah.
So, the genre, the sub-genre does move the goalposts a little bit here and there, but, generally speaking, you'll always be fighting at least one opponent who is way more powerful than yourself. So, but it was in the 2-player mode, mate, honest, it was just a nice length, roughly half an hour long game, as you say.
Yeah.
And it had the feel and the fun of a fighting game combined with the great scrolling beat up like Vendetta or Turtles or Violent Storm. Fantastic game, I think.
It doesn't take itself seriously. Honestly, I recommend this one. I would give it a shot. You can easily get it up and running on MAME.
Absolutely, yeah.
For our next game, we'll turn our attention to a 1995 release by Ban Presto, which is Metamo Questa, Glenn.
Yeah, this was a good one. I enjoyed this, but not as good as Monster Maulers. I just think graphics are beautiful, stunning looking game, as Monster Maulers was as well, but the balance, though, I think is not as good. Again, 2 players versus a single boss enemy at a time, all of them very unique with fantastic animation. But although you do have a good range of different moves and special moves to take these characters down, you just don't see it do a ton of damage, and it takes ages to beat them. I thought it wasn't as good, was it?
No, but I mean, I'll start with the good. I mean, for me, it's a very beautiful looking game. The audio extremely crunchy and visceral. But then that's pretty much all I've got good to say about it, because like I say, the balance is wildly off. The fighting engine itself doesn't feel very fluid. You can't seem to get combos in or anything like that. And the enemies just spend all the time blocking.
And spamming everything.
Yeah.
I think one of the main features with this whole series of games that we've done really is that it's just nice to see what the next opponent is and what to throw at you next time, isn't it?
Yes.
Funny enough as well, Metal Quest is actually based on a series of GRPs. So it's not a standalone game, it's called Oni in Japan. And it's been inspired by the Kamen Rider series as far as the transformations go, which we didn't get to do much. We did a bit of, but not enough to have really made a difference that I think we really want to do.
Do you know what I found the best thing about this game was, Glenn? It's over in 25 minutes.
It's not a long game.
It isn't. As
long as you...
that was probably a bit of a saving grace for it, but... For me, the screen is far too busy at any one given time. You can't tell what is going on.
It looks great when there's nothing else moving, but with the backgrounds just doing their own thing. But when the main characters doing what they're doing, it's like, oh, Christ, it's all
we had to go in single player as well, and it does feel a little easier in the sense that you can tell what's going on. But given the fact that when you die, you'll start back at the beginning with all the enemy having full health again, that would just make it extremely difficult in single player. So, it's, for me, I didn't really enjoy this one, but I can see why somebody would want to try it. So, if you like the look of it, give it a shot.
If you like this sub-genre of fighting games again as well, maybe definitely give it one shot, but that's probably all you'll do. Maybe you run through each of the three characters, but that'd be it, like, really, wouldn't it?
Definitely, mate, definitely.
No mercy. Attack!
For our final video in this series, we're going to take a look at a 1996 Capcom release, and more interestingly, the first CPS3 release, Glenn.
Yeah.
This is Red Earth or Warzone, depending on what territory you live in.
Yeah, two different titles. Again, as always, it was CPS2 stuff, and anyway, stunning looking game, but again, CPS3 introduced some fantastic new features, I think one of my little issues with this game, it's only a small issue, and I'll get it out of the way first, was that people would have probably expected a new Street Fighter game at the time, or something a bit more mainstream, and obviously Red Earth Warzone is quite a different game. It's still a versus fighting game, but it uses this boss rush style that we're talking about, and but it also has a proper, like, more vanilla versus mode, but you're only limited to the four main characters that you'd use in a single player game, which is played like a boss rush fighting game where you take on a set structure of enemies, all of them much more with much more powers and more unbalanced generally than a normal single player fighting game.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a solid fighting game. It really is. It feels just like Marvel vs. Capcom, Street Fighter Alpha, like those later Capcom 2D fighting games.
Yeah.
And on top of that, graphics, audio, all look as good as you'd expect from that age.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I can't help myself though when I look at games like this, and even CPS2 and dare I say some CPS1 and all, but I think just the colour makes these type of games timeless.
Pops, doesn't it?
Yeah, it just does. I mean, it's Capcom's work and Capcom's artists as well. Stunning work, But this was the level of animation on the characters, especially those boss enemies that are twice the height and twice the width of you, and that, I mean, it just looks absolutely fantastic. Beautiful, smooth combat system and all. I really took with this game a lot more than some of the others we played anyway.
I think where Red Earth does its magic is where it changes the genre up a little bit and adds some RPG elements in.
Yeah,
so you've got that the password system, which is so you'll earn experience from every fight. You'll level up in every fight. and then obviously it spits out a password, and you can put that back in on your next player.
It was always quite an interesting function. Do you not think of for arcade
Yeah,
machines?
definitely.
I mean, they use similar things with early Neo Geo stuff, to be honest. But actually having that character password, you can go back to the machine and use it again to develop a character and use that developed character.
What I will say though, it's a double-edged sword here, because at the same time you've got a number of moves that are hidden behind that experience.
Yes. Yeah.
So if you're pretty new to this machine, and you're just too lazy, and you don't have a mobile phone in 1996, which most people didn't, to take a photo of the password, then you're just going to be starting from level 1 every time you play it, and you're not going to have access to those more powerful moves. So a great system, but at the same time I can see why it didn't really catch on too well.
It didn't, did it? I mean, not nowhere near as much as the earliest of CPS2, you know. And it's a shame, because it's still a nice game. It is nice to say that Warzone does actually get some... It gets some fanfare now and a little bit more. And fans, I mean, general Capcom fans, of course, do know about it, but back in the day, people would not really know what this game was. Not when it came up. I never seen a cabinet myself.
No, I don't think we'll ever will. But
No.
beautiful looking game, great animation,
Pleasure
great
to play.
audio, good game to play. We recommend this one, so give it a shot.
Definitely.
Level up.
So we've reached the end of this series, Glenn, and I've got to say, after going through these 5 games, Monster Maulers is my favourite game overall. However, I had the most fun playing Yaya Kung Fu. It's been years since I played that game, and I've never really played the arcade version, and it was such great fun.
Do you know what it is, though? That just goes to show, though, that, you know, newest isn't always best as well. And this
Absolutely.
is a game from such a long, long time ago, and I thought, like, no one
85,
really
yeah.
enjoy it now, you know, this time in this day and age. But it was great fun, and we needed to finally see the whole game completed in full, and we got there.
I don't feel guilty for cheating either, because we had to in the end.
Yeah,
It made the
we
game
didn't do it all the
more
way,
fun.
did we?
No, it was pretty much from like the last 3 enemies I saw, but it was worth doing just to see the final ending. Well, I say final ending, the restart of the game. Yeah.
I was expected at the time. The game, now there's 2 games that come to mind for me, because I'm going to say I had a great deal of fun with Monster Maulers as well. I mean, I've had some degree of fun with all 5 of the games I've played, but Monster Maulers having its features where you're playing side by side and then fighting a group of boss enemies, but then even the final level threw us a little bit by throwing in a long sort of more of a stick to rage fan
typical
fight
brawler
style.
type level. Yeah,
And that was a good fun. But I had a great deal of fun with Street Fighter.
Oh no,
In two player.
in 2-player, yeah,
It was fun. In 2-player was crap, but 2-player was there was we had to tweak it. We had to tweak it to have fun with that, but still, I thought, here is the foundations for what we'd get a good few years later.
Yeah.
Which you can see where it started. Also, Warzone, a beautiful game in general anyway, but it just had such a nice feel, so got to give props to Warzone. The most disappointing game for me was Metamorphosis, because I've never really put a great lot of time into it in the past, and it is a stunner, as we've already said. It's a great little game, but it has a very stiff feel, and it's
too busy.
It's too busy, and it's too unbalanced. It's when you die in every few seconds, I think you're not really enjoying it.
You're not. No, that's
And,
right.
even, I mean, Street Fighter, you had to break the game a bit to enjoy it, but again, you can say, well, it's a victim of its time. It's a product of its time, so I can't be too harsh on that game. But Metal Quest did come out in 1985, so nice game, but not the best of the 5 we've played today, in my opinion.
Definitely
at least.
not. But thank you very much for watching, especially if you've made it this far into the video. Please share with your friends. We're trying to get these series videos a bit more popular. We will eventually be moving the series format over to our sister channel, Gaming on the Brain Rebirth. We'll make sure that's been made aware before it happens. But for now, thank you very much again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.